we're back to Anita Sarkeesian, GamerfromMars videos. I think he's made a few of them on this, and normally I don't like watching the whole videos, but these are like 6 minutes, so we'll see, I guess. I'll try to tag him or whatever the crap, but he looks extremely baby-faced. Yeah, and for the record, I know we talked about Anita Sarkeesian last week as well, but it's kind of an intriguing case, and I feel like I want to do a little bit more about this subject. Maybe we'll put them into a playlist together.
If you've been on the internet for any amount of
sweet glory
time, the name Anita Sarkeesian
I think he actually looks better with glasses. Maybe it makes his face look a little bit more symmetrical somehow.
probably rings a bell, but whether or not you have an opinion about her is a completely other story. So a while back I decided I wanted to make a companion video series, with one video talking about reasons people like her, and another one talking about why some people dislike her.
Probably because she's a woman.
So today, let's talk about 5 reasons people dislike Anita Sarkeesian. When making a series that is
Inaccuracies. Because she's a woman.
Going to be extremely critical of video games that have a loyal fan base, you really have to make sure that you have all your information double-checked. And this is even more the case with Anita Sarkeesian, who was given over $150,000 to hopefully create a factual series, but she unfortunately failed on a few occasions. Probably the worst case of this is when the YouTube series covered the video game Hitman Absolution, where she claims that in one of the game's levels you were encouraged to kill 2 female dancers, then toss them
Yeah, okay, we'll see what
around
the
as if they were
is.
simply objects. The problem is that the game actually docks you points for killing them, and rather you're supposed to sneak around without being seen.
Yeah,
While
to be fair, like I'm sure I've made mistakes too in my videos.
you can argue that having the ability at all to kill them is twisted, you have to wonder what is to be expected from a video game called Hitman. Plus you're able to kill
No, I would say that's just like an element of realism. Like, I can't imagine like people would be like, "Oh, that's twisted that you can kill anyone." Like, I'm assuming it's not like, "Oh, you can kill the dancers, specifically the dancers, and no one else." Like, I'm assuming you can kill a lot of people. Probably the dancers happen to be some of those people. Just like, I don't know. I don't know.
kill people of both genders, so it's not just a female thing. And this is only one of the most blatant examples of inaccuracies. A simple Google search will bring up tons of videos picking apart her YouTube series. I think it's no surprise that when inaccuracies like this happen, it's sure to get people mad.
Again, I'm not knocking it necessarily because, you know, I'm sure I've made inaccuracies in my videos too that's probably perhaps unavoidable.
To be honest, this is probably one of the weaker cases against Anita, but I think it's still worth a mention. When originally starting the Kickstarter campaign, she made it seem like she was the gamer herself that wanted to take on the misogynistic ways of the industry, which many thought was a noble enough pursuit, until it was realized that she had admitted on film that she was not a fan of video games herself.
One song, except I'm doing video games. So it's not exactly a fandom. I'm not a fan of video games. I actually had to learn a lot about video games in the process of making this.
That's not insignificant. Maybe there's some context there, but that's
This gave people a lot of ammunition to rail on her points, since she didn't even like the things that she was discussing until she wanted money to make a series about it. Because of this, many have dismissed her points, even more so because it appears that she only got into gaming to complain about it and raise money on Kickstarter. As mentioned earlier though, this argument is kind of weak since her not being a gamer herself doesn't necessarily make her arguments less valid.
it does if she's presenting herself as a gamer. Well, I say that. I would say maybe it speaks to her character, which it's not. It's not everything, but it's not nothing either.
But it does make many wonder what her intentions were to make tropes versus women in video games in the first place. There are a lot of stigmatizing people in our culture today that will speak their mind no matter how unpopular it is to do so, and I don't think anyone would argue Anita falls into this category. But the key difference many see between her and many other figures is that she won't debate any of her critics. While she
Well, admittedly, I could see people not wanting to debate just in general, probably, but
has made appearances on many programs, the hosts never try to counter her points, and on Twitter it seems that she almost completely ignores any counter-arguments people make against her series. There have been cases where well-known opponents of her ideas wanted to have a civil public debate so she can defend her points, but she simply doesn't respond to these requests. This makes many assume that she's simply unable to defend her positions on issues and instead opts to stay in an echo chamber of people that parrot her beliefs. And while many defend her for not debating,
again, I don't know if I would necessarily fault people for not wanting to debate.
her critics, no one can deny that she seems to ignore many of the accusations placed against her.
I mean, that would maybe be more significant. Like, especially if there's, like, you know, I assume with regards to anyone, there was always going to be, you know, some viable points made against you in your videos, etc., etc. So, I don't know.
Recently, Anita Sarkeesian went to talk about harassment online, which most can agree is a topic that should be open for discussion because of the anonymous nature of the internet, and the fact that very little moderation has been implemented on sites like Twitter. To put it simply, the internet's a free-for-all. Now, the problem that people have with Anita talking about it is that she seems to always frame it as a female-only issue, which I can personally attest is not the case. When you make yourself known on social networking sites, you'll
as they say, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
at some point have to deal with harassment. That's simply how the internet works, no matter your religion, nationality, or gender. These conferences that only discuss female harassment often anger men who have been victims of harassment themselves, since they feel their hardships are being minimalized when many discussions of the topic only bring up one gender. As a
okay. I'm not going to say, I tend to think it's, like, I think women probably get a little bit more online. And it's one of those things because it works more with women. Men tend to not respond as much. They tend to be a little bit... There's a reason, like, the insensitive bastard stereotype exists, okay? It's because men do, in fact, tend to be a little bit less sensitive. That type of... Like, people do stuff because it works, and the reason online harassment towards women, more so, probably because it works more so. It's not good. It is, unfortunately, the way, I don't know, some sort of... Yeah, never mind.
Person who has gotten death threats and has been called every name in the book, online harassment has never really fazed me since, you know, these are just random people on the internet. But I could see why this whole ordeal may infuriate some.
Sorry, that's him talking about... That's GamerfromMars talking about his own...
When many discussions of the topic only bring up one gender. As a person who has gotten death
misandrist
threats and has been called every name in the book,
witch,
online harassment has never really fazed me since,
femcel,
you know, these are just random people on the internet. But I could see why this whole ordeal may infuriate some. One of the biggest things that irritates the critics of Anita Sarkeesian's claims is that they often don't get a chance to defend themselves or their viewpoints. On several occasions throughout many different publications, Anita has gotten articles written about her where she's...
There's one point I would make against, I guess, maybe I'm just thinking about it now that he brought it up, but it does feel like if you're unwilling to, at the very least, address some of the points made by your detractors, some points made in good faith, if you represent all of them as just these demonic, you know, misogynistic blah, 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 it kind of indicates that your ideas are kind of lightweight. They're not really robust. They can't take any sort of scrutiny or defend themselves against whatever. I tend to think the truth is, it's generally speaking, it's something that can defend itself. It's something that can stand up against lies, slander, etc., etc. Like, if it wasn't, it wouldn't really be the truth, would it? Yeah, at least that's my theory. So again, like, I wouldn't say that you have to debate people. I think I can understand why people wouldn't want to debate, but it feels like maybe on some level you should try to address some of the points that are being made in good faith.
Portrayed as surely right, while all her critics are in the wrong. When these sort of stories come out, it baffles many that have placed legitimate criticism against her. But when these stories get written out, portrayed as surely in the right publications, Anita has gotten articles written about her where she's portrayed as surely in the right, while all her critics are in the wrong. When these sort of stories come out, it baffles many that have placed legitimate criticism against.
So that's what you call like a paper tiger, I tend to think. It's kind of one of those things where it might seem almost advantageous to the people involved to present their things as being one-sided, but it feels like to not address it, I don't know. It feels like positions that are artificially protected, as I mentioned with regards to, like, their ideas tend to not be the most robust, right? Positions that never have to defend themselves, or never, oh goodness, I cringe at saying this, but never tested in the fire. Like, they have a tendency to be like, not dissimilar to maybe only children. They're not the most well-adjusted, they're not the most developed. Because of that, they can tend to be kind of sickly, jaundiced sorts of ideas or movements. Because again, they never had to defend themselves, they never had to exercise any sort of intellectual rigor in the formation of their ideas. So why would their ideas be, good or useful, or why would they have that level of whatchamathingy
against her? But when these stories get written, they often completely ignore that there is another legitimate side to these arguments. This of course has happened in the past with violence being pinned on gamers. Even though statistics show that homicides in the United States have gone down.
So this is something I think we'll get into actually later. I think some people, and myself included actually, were kind of thinking that she had meant that these games would lead to violence against women, that they would cause men to be, maybe that's the way, I think that was the way I was interpreting it, because she said that that's not what she meant. I don't know if what she actually meant is any better. We'll maybe figure it out.
Substantially since the creation of violent video games, it hasn't stopped newscasters from accusing gamers of being a bunch of crazed psychopaths. Now in the 2010s, you could swap out violent for sexist, and you start to understand why many are upset. Well, there you have my picks for 5 reasons people are super critical.
Yeah, okay, Babyface Nelson here made some good points, but now we're going to watch the antithetical one. The antithesis to that video we just watched. 5 reasons people like Anita Sarkeesian by GamerfromMars, aka Babyface. My brain isn't working, okay? Shut up. I think it's because I had waffles yesterday. For whatever reason, those always... there's a little thing where I think sugar inflames your brain or whatever. Brain fog, something like that. That's why it ain't working good. Probably. Amongst other things.
Last time I went into detail on reasons people are super critical of Anita Sarkeesian and her video series on YouTube. But then I realized it would only be fair to talk about reasons people actually enjoy her work. So today I present to you my picks for the top 5 reasons people like Anita Sarkeesian. Let's get this one out of the way. There is some sexism in gaming. All you have to do is...
See, I don't think that's unique to women. I think any time there is an abnormality, it will be pointed out. And sometimes it will be pointed out and exploited and made fun of by malevolent actors. It's not... They're not special little snowbird thingies.
Be a woman playing Call of Duty with voice chat on, and there will be tons of creeps trying to talk to you.
But yeah, I'm not saying it's not a point to be made. As perhaps it's a. I think it is a thing, obviously.
Now, of course, this is a small number of gamers, but we can't deny that they're a very loud and obnoxious minority. Along with these guys, you also have internet trolls that will always look for reasons to belittle and offend others online, whether it be for the color of their skin, their nationality, or gender. These are the types of people that will go around telling women to get out of gaming, and of course some go as far to make death threats. These are the fools that make gamers look bad and cause people like Anita Sarkeesian.
See, I'm assuming this is something about damsels in distress, because like that's kind of what Donkey Kong is, right? You're trying to... I think this is Mario trying to save... what's her face? Rosaline? Something?
To gain traction, because people want to see this type of pitiful online harassment stopped. Whether shows like Feminist Frequency actually do anything to stop trolling against women is a
Giant earrings! That means she's evil, right? Like Cruella de Vil?
completely different story.
We all know where she is going. Eventually. I'm kidding.
Tumblr is a social networking site on the internet that acts as a blogging platform of sorts for people to share their views on a variety of subjects.
I don't think I've ever actually been on Tumblr.
But the thing that
I can't imagine I'm actually going to go.
makes the site unique is that its users are known to be extremely politically correct. So basically the
How delightful.
complete opposite of 4chan. When you go onto most sites on the internet, the overwhelming majority of people seem to despise Anita Sarkeesian and her actions, leading many to wonder where all of her alleged supporters are, and the answer to that question is simple: Tumblr. Well, I suppose this isn't a reason people like Feminist Frequency. A site like Tumblr provides a place for supporters of Anita to go without the opposition that they would face on Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, or most other sites on the internet. As mentioned in last week's video, whenever Anita gets brought up in a national news report or even in many online articles, she is shown to be a person trying to take down the sexist
Again, is this the same video or is it a different one? I'm just seeing giant hooped earrings. Maybe it's just her style.
video game industry, and all the misogynistic gamers hate her because they don't want women in gaming. Now, when you have one-sided articles like these that don't
No, still still giant hooped earrings.
even bother to try to understand the other side's perspective of an issue, it will lead to many just taking it at face value without finding out more about the other side's point of view. I think this just goes to show that people should never take news reports at face value because they are most likely one-sided and someone behind the scenes probably has an agenda to push.
Alright, so
It will lead to many just taking it at face value without finding out many online articles. She is shown to be a person trying to take down the sexist video game industry, and all the misogynistic gamers hate her because they don't want women in gaming. Now, when you have
it's a false reason why people like her.
one-sided articles like these that don't even bother to try to understand the other side's perspective of an issue, it will lead to many just taking it at face value without finding out more about the other side's point of view. I think this just goes to show that people should never take news reports at face value because they are most likely one-sided and someone behind the scenes probably has an agenda to push. And this advice goes well beyond gaming journalism. An oftentimes strange thing I
She was arrested. That's why people let now.
hear people claim against Anita is that she stages all of these death threats simply to make herself look like the victim. And while yes, there are tons of people that make cases that some of the harassment is self-made, I have to ask myself, why? Even though I run a mostly uncontroversial channel that rarely gives opinions on provocative subjects, I still get tons of hate. So the idea that someone
To be fair, this is kind of provocative, but
accusing video games of being sexist is going to get harassed 10 times worse than me is a no-brainer. When many see Anita Sarkeesian, they are viewing a woman that's standing up for what she believes in, even though it's removing any shred of privacy that she may have had in her life to do so. Because of this, they look at her activism as a noble venture to make gaming a more open community than it already is. Of course, whether or not that is
okay. Again, sorry, giant hoop earrings. What the Harry?
true is a completely
I
different...
feel like somehow, just because of that, she's less trustworthy. I know that's a baseless stereotype, but, you know. I don't know if I trust women with giant hooped earrings. They feel like they're the type of thing that you would pull off and hand to someone right before you start a fight. I'm not sure if this is, like, some sort of subconscious racism. that I'm subconsciously thinking about black women when I'm thinking about giant hoop earrings. That's a possibility.
Debate.
Something about it just screams like diva or high maintenance, overzealous, entitled type.
The most obvious.
Oh, she doesn't. No. Sorry, this is Sweet Glory. Maybe they're just her favorite earrings. I don't know.
Obvious reason as to why people like Anita Sarkeesian is because they find tropes versus women in video games to be a very interesting series, about a hot-button issue that most YouTubers aren't willing to take a look at and fear that they will divide their audience. Even though there have been quite a few blatant errors that should have been avoided, such as the Hitman incident, much of the other games covered are pretty accurate, and some of her videos cover positive female figures in games where she praises game developers instead of bashing them for sexism. While Anita may not be anywhere near perfect, this issue has led to a group that is extremely nitpicky about why games are sexist, and a whole other group that goes to the other extreme with not much in between. So it shouldn't be a surprise that many are going to enjoy tropes versus women in video games. Well, there you have my picks for 5 reasons people enjoy.
Alright. That's that video. Again, sorry, I don't normally like watching the whole thing, but these are kind of short, so it's, I don't know if it's better or worse or what. Alright. And we're back. This one is continue. I think we're going to continue off. We're going to continue where we left off. The most hated woman in history, and then I think we're going to jump to what happened to Anita Sarkeesian after we watch a little bit more of this. I think there's a part in here I wanted to see. Alright, yeah, let's get into this.
But it explains why things escalated the way they did. It didn't help that around this time, the atheist community declared war on feminists. With Elevator Gate a year...
Again, I don't know if this came up before, but I think I talked about it a little bit. Like, it's kind of strange to think that in the beginning, atheists would have been, like, anti-feminist? I guess again, it kind of makes sense, like, that they would be so, because, like, the whole movement is kind of puritanical type of thing, and back in the day, at the least, atheists were kind of punk rock, if that makes sense. They were kind of, their whole shtick was, subversive to societal norms, or like the whole notion of don't tell me what to do, maybe. Like, I don't know, that's kind of what they felt like, rebellious-ish. The whole notion of, oh no, you have to be nice, like, it feels like the recent kind of woke atheism type of whatever like that, like, I don't know. It feels like an aberration somehow.
Prior, tensions rose until a scientist known as Thunderfoot Online posted a video titled, "Why Feminism is Poisoning Atheism."
The problem is that many in leadership positions have managed to get themselves bullied or cajoled into this bullshit PC appeasement position by people who are conspicuous in that they proudly label themselves as feminists. Folks who find t-shirts like this offensive enough to
I'm a skeptic, not a skeptic. Not a woman skeptic, just a skeptic.
reduce them to tears.
It's interesting that around this time, all the online atheists switched from complaining about fundamentalist Christians to feminists. It laid the groundwork for the eventual wave of skeptics and anti-SJWs that would build a right-leaning community that included a lot of the conservative Christians the atheists used to complain about. By early 2013, Sarkeesian launched a Tumblr for her series, and a month later released the very first episode of the crowdfunded Tropes vs. Women in Video Games. The first episode of the Kickstarter back campaign was released on March 7th, 2013, called The
Forget it. Just forget it.
Damsel in Distress. It was briefly taken down after a false flagging campaign, but quickly reinstated. Within hours, TJ Kirk uploaded...
Sorry, what were you looking at here?
First episode of the Kickstarter back campaign was released on March 7th, 2013, called The Damsel in Distress. It was...
I don't know if I like the presentation of kind of formulaic storytelling as like a trope or something that's like the demonization of it. Like most games involve some danger taking place, and believe it or not, there are statistics. Like I guess kind of a tangent here. There are statistics that would seem to indicate, and a lot of people were crowing about this at one point, that oh no, it's 50-50. The women they represent 48% of gamers. I'm thinking the people who were crowing about the statistics didn't really look into the qualifier for the term gamer. I think they'd effectively, with regards to those statistics, they said, have you played games? Like my dad has played games. He is not a gamer, right? I had seen one statistic, something to the effect that like 48% of women have said, yes, I have played a game. Only 6% would say they are gamers. There are, I think, other ones that have to do with like PC gaming and console gaming as opposed to like mobile, I assume, or something like that. I'm thinking PC was something around 28%, console was something like 22%. And it feels like that 6% or that 22% is just on my own anecdotal evidence. Those would seem to be far more accurate. I know almost no women who would call themselves gamers who are like really into it. Not saying it doesn't happen, but I think overwhelmingly it is men who are gaming. Back to the notion of storytelling. Most stories involve danger, right? Most stories involve a hero saving someone who is in danger or something like that. And since most of the gamers are men, it feels kind of intuitive that most of the heroes would be men, and most of the people in danger would, generally speaking, probably be women. Again, I don't like this notion, like, I don't know if I like it presented as like, oh, tropes. It's tropes. Like this demonization of the way storytelling just kind of works.
Was briefly taken down after...
Well, and beyond that, like, it feels like all storytelling, generally speaking, there is a type of formula to it. You don't write about things that are completely disinteresting. You write stories about people who are put into interesting circumstances or who are themselves interesting, who are compelling, who are intriguing. The Office being, I guess, a notable exception, but generally speaking, you don't write things about boring, everyday things. So, just by virtue of that, the number of caricatures or archetypes of people is limited, right? So it's inevitable that they will fall into the realm of tropes, as they would say, both for men and women. I think I'd mentioned that in the last video I'd done about this crap.
False flagging campaign, but quickly reinstated. Within hours, TJ Kirk uploaded Who's the Damsel Now? He admits it was more even-handed than her previous videos, but called on Miss Sarkeesian to face her critics and stop playing the victim.
And I honestly have no major criticisms of its content. I do, however, take issue with one aspect of Anita's video, the fact that she has disabled ratings, comments, and even statistics. We, the audience, are not allowed to have an opinion, it seems.
5 days later, Thunderfoot uploaded his first rebuttal.
I can't help but I'm thinking in some of his videos, it looks like he almost has red hair. So, until I know exactly where this guy's loyalties rely, whether with the Infernal or with the humans and the angels, we're just going to be a little bit sus about this guy.
To Anita, feminism versus facts.
I mean, really, did you have to start with the straw man in the title? Do you really think that tropes are specifically adversarial to women? Maybe I should title this video in a reciprocatively fair fashion. Maybe something like feminism versus facts.
Mm-hmm.
This may...
Feminism. What's it? Oh, what's the thing that J. Jonah Jameson always says about... It was the thing he was talking about Spider-Man. Criminal or menace?
May very well be the origin of the idea behind facts don't care about your feelings. Watching with 10 years of hindsight...
Oh, this is where Ben Gutt is saying.
This video strawmans her arguments. Thunderfoot claims Anita's noticing trends that don't exist, but that's despite the trope's very long history.
No, I think they do exist. I just also don't think they're really a problem. Now, I think certainly within the realm of, like, you know, the kind of the structure of standard storytelling, you can probably mess with stuff a little bit. You could probably shake things up a little bit. And who's hurt by wanting more interesting characters? But again, to demonize, like, oh, all women fall into the, like, I don't know if that's the way to go.
Across literature and film. He implies Double Dragon Neon isn't a valid example because it ends with a damsel punching the villain in the nuts. Her argument is that it's a plot device that happens to characters and doesn't necessarily define them. This symbolic...
What? Okay, like, it feels kind of like a No True Scotsman type thing.
Performative gesture isn't a strong counter-argument to that.
Remember, the damsel in distress's plot device is something that happens to a female character, and not necessarily something a character is from start to finish.
I want to...
No character is something from start to finish. They change. What's wrong with you?
clarify that
Why are you the way?
Tropes versus Women in Gaming isn't a perfect series either, which we'll explore later on. There are also premises I can see people taking issue with because they're simply...
No, I'm going back to that. The whole point of storytelling, generally speaking, is that characters develop over the course of it. They don't start as one thing and end up with the same thing, presumably. That is kind of one of the cornerstones of good storytelling, is like character growth, right?
treated as accepted fact.
The belief that women are somehow a naturally weaker gender is a deeply ingrained, socially constructed
Based in fact, you jackanape.
myth, which of course is completely false.
Why are you the way that you are? Just to clarify, I had heard the person from Odyssey, the trans one, talking about gender norms. Oh, it's just a quaint little myth we tell ourselves. Tell me what else. Equality? A quaint little myth that we tell ourselves? Right? Consent? Quaint little myth that we tell ourselves? Completely false? Completely made up? Is that cool with you? Is that cool with you? The notion of tolerance? That seems like a quaint little myth that we tell ourselves. Would you be fine with getting rid of those things? Would you be fine as representing those things as just these ephemeral, stupid little things that it's just a social conditioning thing? Because I feel like you, or Anita, and a lot of people like her would have a lot of problems if we just said, oh, no, tolerance for people who are different than you is just a quaint little myth that we tell ourselves. Certainly, gender norms are far more universal than any of those other things. They're practiced in pretty much every species. Now, they don't always look the same as they do with, humans, but they're still there. Okay? I don't know how you get more, fundamental than gender norms. All of those other things are much less fundamental.
But the notion is reinforced and perpetuated when women are continuously portrayed as frail, fragile, and vulnerable creatures.
They mostly are.
Gender binary is an entirely artificial and socially constructed division of male.
Bullshit. Again, I guess maybe I said I don't know how you can get much more fundamental. You can get more fundamental, but that is one of the most intuitive things about humans, and one of the most obvious things. What the? Okay.
Male and female into two distinctly separate and opposing classes of human being.
As I watched these videos for my research, I realized that they weren't that outrageous and pretty benign media analysis overall. This shouldn't be surprising since Anita has explained that unlike previous videos, which were much more off the cuff, these were much more intentional. They're rather adept at anticipating and addressing counter-arguments.
This series will include critical analysis of many beloved games and characters, but remember that it's both possible, and even necessary, to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of...
I feel like we should buy an island somewhere. Let's buy Greenland and let's send all the people that want to try this new age bullshit. We'll send them there and see if they can pull it off. You know, you want to try this experimental crap. Please do it on your own time. Please, pretty please.
Of its more problematic or pernicious aspects. Just to be clear, I'm not
She said pernicious, which, I approve of, but still.
saying that all games that use the damsel in distress as a plot device are automatically sexist or have no value.
This was lost on many people who came away thinking this.
I mean, Jesus, girl, you are one sick puppy. So in your
That I agree with that. Said it.
mind, if my girlfriend gets abducted, I can't want to protect her or to keep her safe without turning her into an object. I mean, really, by your feminist reasoning here, hospitals, the places where patients come to be acted on, are actually objectification centers where people are turned into merely objects to be acted on.
Thunderfoot's first video on the subject garnered over 1 million views, spawning the profitable...
It's kind of intriguing, to think of what the actual the term objectification means. I think in the case of sexism, it would entail being reduced to one's sexuality to the point where, the idea being you don't see women as a fully functioning human being. You don't value them as a human. You value them as a set of parts to be utilized.
Industry of anti-Sarkeesian and later anti-feminist content. The gaming industry, on the other hand, largely stood by Anita, with veteran Cliff Bleszinski speaking out at Kotaku. He defended Tropes vs. Women's right to exist and said gamers need to...
Technically, I defend its right to exist. I just also think it's stupid as all get out. Let me double check. Yeah, we're good.
Quote, grow up. If by watching Anita's videos, I, as a developer, can reconsider how I depict women in any future product of mine, then her work may very well be worth it. This belief was echoed by writer Anthony Birch and game designer Tim Schafer. On April 5th,
Please don't learn anything from this woman. Well, I say anything. Please don't learn anything important from this woman.
Student uploaded a recording they took
Anita.
when Anita spoke at their college.
Is that a woman? I don't know.
During the Q&A, they read off a letter stating her trolls didn't represent gaming as a whole.
With or without the net, I don't think talking about video games is going to help the season. I propose that we promote the positives like you've done so today, because the negative...
It's kind of a rigid delivery, but... Alright.
...only attract more negative responses.
On April 18th, Anita appeared on CNN.
And what I wanted to do, or what I hope to do by telling my story, is to...
Again, giant hooped earrings. I think those are literally just her favorites or something. I can't imagine she has a whole bunch of different ones.
create a space where people take online harassment more seriously. There's a sort of conception that what happened to me was trolling. And trolling is largely...
I was about to say there's a misconception, though.
thought of as one individual who's trying to get a rise out of another individual. And what happened to me was really a cyber mob, right? It was thousands of individuals coming after.
See, look, I don't disagree that the notion of online trolling is bad, or harassing people online is bad, or just saying crap to make them angry or to try to get them to kill themselves is bad. It just feels like it's also kind of very much within your power to just turn off the computer and go do other stuff. It's like if you're on the playground and someone's insulting you, but you can literally just hit the mute button and walk away. Like, I'm not saying it's good, but it feels like it's not like an real life issue. So maybe I'm thinking it's just overblown, or I don't know.
For me, who are loosely working together.
Thunderfoot responded by stating he had faced far more harassment.
In fact, a quick search for images of you online shows that the internet has been far kinder to you than it has been to me.
On May 28th, Anita released part 2 of The Damsel in Distress. It was once again taken down after being false flagged. This received even more rebuttals from Thunderfoot and TJ Kirk. What's fascinating is they're often arguing against points she isn't making, by saying the exact same thing as she states in the video. To give an
I think this is the part I was thinking of.
example of this, TJ points out many plot devices are only used out of convenience rather than intentional sexism.
And of all the reasons that a character might embark on a quest, saving or avenging a loved one is probably the easiest to convey quickly. I think that is the reason for the damsel in distress trope. I don't think it's designed to denigrate women. I think it's...
Dang it. I thought it was being original there. Well, technically it was being original, but it doesn't mean other people can have the same idea. I thought I was being more unique, perhaps that's the way of saying it. I think I did come up with the ideas myself, but...
just an easy plot device.
And this is what she states in her video.
Despite these troubling implications, game creators aren't necessarily all sitting around twirling their nefarious-looking mustaches while consciously trying
Okay, that guy is awesome. I already like him.
to figure out how to best misrepresent women as part of some grand conspiracy. Most probably just haven't given much thought to the underlying messages their games are sending. And in many cases...
See, messages. Underlying messages. Again, I'm thinking later in this video, he says that she literally isn't saying that, oh no, this will make men misogynistic. I'm assuming she's more preaching some sort of bullshit systemic type thing where it's affecting... I don't know what she's trying to say.
Developers have backed themselves into a corner with their own game mechanics.
Kirk then says that because most devs and gamers are male, it's only natural their views are most prevalent. But that doesn't negate the value of examining why that is. Many critics argue her series ignores the context behind specific characters and scenes, calling it dishonest. Her position is that the excuse for using a trope doesn't itself justify a trope's use. You don't have to agree with this, but at least understand what you're trying to refute in her videos. Anita is also very clear.
The excuse for using a trope doesn't justify the trope's use. Well, that's what it's meant to do, I guess, but it doesn't mean it'll succeed.
Clear that individual games aren't harmful on their own. It's the broader cultivation effect that perpetrates harm.
Yeah, like I said, that's the way I'm thinking. Like, it's more systemic. It's affecting the way society sees women.
Views.
And taken on their own, each individual example we've covered in this episode might seem relatively benign or trivial.
Okay, so steel manning her idea. The notion would be that like a broader representation of women as such will affect the way society perceives women, the way society, I guess... I can't imagine that's the case. I could imagine a scenario in which a person who no one ever meets, like if we were to put a number of Indian characters into disparate, developed video games. Let's say Indian characters. Did I say Indian characters? We'll put a number of Indian characters into all these different games, and we'll represent them all with certain stereotypical things. It might be that people who've never met Indians will start to see Indians as such. It might be that people will start to see Indian characters in such and such a fashion, because that's their only exposure to them. This is women. I don't think however many women you put in video games, people actually do meet women in real life. Almost everyone, I assume, meets women in real life. So the notion that, this is going to... I can't imagine it have much of an effect, generally speaking. It's not the same sort of niche exposure problem that would be with regards to different other things. Like, they present women as being oppressed, but it's not the same as women being a minority. If that makes sense.
But the reason this series focuses on tropes is because they help us recognize larger recurring patterns.
Kirk calls this contradictory, arguing she's picking and choosing when context matters. Thunderfoot summarizes her argument as, video games make people sexist.
I'll make this simple for you, Anita. Really, really simple. You can claim as a hypothesis all you want that women not being portrayed as you want in video games is making society misogynistic. Hell, The people who claim that video games make people more violent have a far better case than your claim that they make people sexist.
Again, she explicitly states otherwise.
Sorry. I was thinking about the violence in video games. It's just occurring to me that there might be some sort of selection bias. I don't know if it would actually be causal.
That they reinforce pre-existing views.
Likewise, engaging with these games is not going to magically transform players into raging sexists. We typically don't have a monkey-see, monkey-do direct cause and effect relationship with the media we consume. Cultural influence works in much more subtle and complicated ways.
On August...
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, you're presenting it as some sort of nebulous... These are the... I imagine I have gone and I've waxed eloquent on my feelings about systemic racism and stuff like that. I don't like it when people try to represent the issue they're presenting and the issue they want you to solve by behaving a certain way as some sort of nebulous thing that only they can see and or understand. Don't like it, as a general rule. Alright. Moving on. What happened to Anita Sarkeesian? Dead channels. So, this... I think this was actually an older one. We'll see. Because I'm thinking that one we just watched previously here, the one we started last week and went on a little bit more here, is actually newer. He has glasses in that one. He looks less, weird. And this one looks older.
Episode of What Happened was brought to you by Quip, the world's best toothbrush. To find out more, stay tuned till the end of the video. I remember 5 or so years ago, I couldn't go onto the internet without hearing about...
Yeah, he looks younger to me.
...feminist frequency and the woman who ran it, Anita Sarkeesian. With non-stop media attention and millions of views on her videos, some said she was going to start a revolution. Recently, however, I went to check out her channel out of curiosity because I hadn't heard her name in a while. And to my surprise, less than 0.5% of her subscribers were still watching her content.
I'm not going to lie. That warms the cockles of my heart. A little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, maybe a lot. I don't know. Like this is not my favorite character in the world.
With each upload only getting around 1,000 views apiece. So, what on earth happened? Well, before I start off today, I just want to make it very clear
for the record, maybe she's a very nice person in real life. She's just not... Maybe... I like to think I could get to the point where I would be friends with almost anyone if I knew them in real life, but just from exposure online, this one-dimensional way in which I'm viewing her, perhaps not a fan. At least I don't agree with her. Maybe I would like her. I don't agree with her.
Try to not show any political bias for or against feminist frequency in this video. I actually think her downfall can be explained without arguing over feminism, so it won't be necessary. The story of Anita's rise starts in 2012 when she decided to start up a Kickstarter campaign. She was looking for $6,000 to make videos explaining how many of people's favorite video game franchises were in fact sexist.
Again, he explained in some of his other videos, she was kind of presenting herself as a gamer, it feels like, and like the video he shows, I'm assuming that's not altered or anything. She literally says, I was not a gamer. I had to get into this stuff. There's something skeevy about that. Of course,
many didn't like her premise and thought that this style of feminism was simply looking for everything to be sexist, even when sexism wasn't there. Because this is the internet, a few people took things to the next level and started to harass her, including death threats. Anita quickly went to social media and a wide range of journalists with her story of a feminist being harassed by gamers for criticizing their hobby. Her struggles went viral with millions...
And again, that sounds a lot more compelling from her angle if she is actually a gamer, but that's not what seems to be the case. It seems like she was presenting herself as that she wasn't really.
Finding out about her project, leading to plenty of them donating a total of $158,000 for the videos to be made. and a few months later, the first episode was out.
Welcome to our multi-part video series exploring the roles and representations of women in video games. This project will examine the tropes, plot devices, and patterns most commonly associated with women in gaming from a systemic, big-picture perspective.
Systemic.
This series will include critical analysis of many beloved games and
Bet she's going to say the word oppression.
characters.
Maybe not, but she does feel like she's kind of in that camp of individuals.
Remember that it's both possible, and even necessary, to simultaneously enjoy media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects.
Problematic.
Many, including myself, started to ask why on earth she needed any money, let alone $150,000 to produce a series that is essentially what every single other YouTuber makes for no upfront cost. But hey, if people wanted to spend their money on this, who am I to judge? Besides, most people that donated did so as a statement, rather than because they wanted to see this particular series be made. The money wasn't really the impressive part though. Rather, it was all the attention she gained. Even if she raised $1 million, if it wasn't for that media circus, the videos would have come out, received a couple thousand views, then people would have forgotten about them. Instead, because of this controversy and all the press, the first episode premiered with 2 million views. No matter how you feel about her, this was impressive. She was able to turn people trolling her into a huge amount of super positive media attention. On the other hand, when I get that...
Yeah, it's convenient when your suffering can be treated. I'm not saying it's like nice to be trolled, but I feel like, I don't know. It's very convenient when it can be turned into monetary gain.
Threats over my videos, no one ever gives me anything. As time went on, however, there was a new type of criticism levied against her, which was her lack of progress on the project itself. You'd think a dozen YouTube videos wouldn't take more than a year to create, considering all the money she was able to raise. But that turned out not to be true. In 2013, it took months for many of these videos to come out. But as the years went on, we received fewer and fewer
She's a slacker.
updates about the project. It's been over 5 years, and as far as I can tell, she still hasn't released all the videos she promised from 2012. Because of this, many
Slacker!
eyebrows were raised when Anita started up another crowdfunding campaign, even though content from the last one from years
Ordinary. What the?
earlier was still not released. It still didn't stop people from donating though, and none of the articles that reported on this new project included this detail. If you didn't already know, there has always been this weird popularity of Anita. If you go on YouTube or any other site, the users will all be criticizing her. Yet journalists seem to write uniformly positive articles in her favor.
No, so it's some sort of astroturf BS?
And companies continue to hire her on as a consultant for various feminist-related projects.
Well, that's the thing, like, you can imagine it would be kind of annoying to be in that scenario, where, I don't know, it feels like that there's a question of whether or not people are hiring you because you're competent or because you're optically advantageous. I don't know. It feels like that would be an issue, it seems like. That's imposter syndrome, is that the phrase people use? Like, why are they hiring you? I think there's been issues with people who are into the whole DEI thing where they get something because of their race. Like, why would you want that to be a factor? Because again, like, it feels like it presents this issue of, okay, did they hire me because I was good at what I did? Because I deserve to be here? Did they hire me because they wanted to be seen to be good for hiring me?
Don't believe me that most general internet users don't like her? Well, let me show you an example to try to prove my point. All the way back in 2015, I made 2 videos back to back. One was called 5 Reasons People Like Anita Sarkeesian, and the other was 5 Reasons People Hate Anita. I knew that the one giving her positive coverage was going to get plenty of dislikes, but since I enjoy playing the devil's advocate, I made it anyway. Even when you factor in that my audience is probably biased against Anita, the response was still jaw-dropping. The video listing reasons why people disliked her received one of the best ratios of likes to dislikes I've ever received. And on top of this, it pulled in a solid 676,000 views. On the other hand, my list with a positive spin may have been
84,000.
the only video I've ever had that received more downvotes than upvotes. Not only this, but after all these years, it's still only at 84,000 views. So you may
We just added one to that at least.
ask, if most people on the internet have a negative view of her, why do big companies and the press like her so much? Well, to put it simply, it comes down to each group having different core beliefs and worldviews. And the people with...
And maybe he's going to come into this, but I feel like it is very much, they want to look like the type of people who would hire her, right? They want to look like, oh yes, we're good feminists, progressive, crap, whatever the thing is. And this might not be the case. I don't know what she's up to these days. I'm assuming she's still kind of, I don't know, whatever, doing Marxist, systemic crap. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like systemic oppression, Marxism, bullshit. That's what she's kind of spinning in general. Okay, actually, I want to see. You know what? I think we're just going to end it there. You can watch the rest of this video if you want. What happens when what happened to Anita Sarkeesian dead channels? And then the previous one was, I don't know, you can look up Anita Sarkeesian with Gamer from Mars. You'll find all of his videos on it, I assume.